Get all over.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Oroville City Council meeting, January 21st, 2020, where we are returning from closed session where direction was given, but no action was taken. Will you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Salute. Pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
Second that.
Motion carries.
All right, moving on to public communication. This is the time in our meeting where we hear from the public. And I'd like to remind everyone before we get started, if there is something listed on the agenda that you would like to speak on, please try and have your blue card turned in to the clerk before we, or by the time we reach that item. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
Mr. Mayor, I have 5 speakers for public comment. The first one is Donald Chestang, and then Sherry Bunker, and then Annie Terry.
Don.
Right here.
Well, actually, I didn't think I would be first, but here we go. Oh, okay, okay. Well, anyway, I'm affiliated with the Haven for Hope facility, and since I've been there, it's been real nice because I was homeless, really homeless, and by being there, you know, it keeps me off the streets at night and all that kind of stuff, and also. I think it breaks down on crime. Although I wasn't doing any crime, but there's a lot of crime out there after certain hours of the night. But if people have a place to stay, you know, it'll be less crime, you know. And it's a good facility. I mean, we eat good every night and everything, and bedding. We keep the place very clean. We try to keep it clean anyway. You know, I'm on a committee to make sure everything goes in order, like no pilfering outside and all that kind of stuff. And I also noticed that there's some companies around the area that really don't want us there. But if it wasn't there, I'll give you an example. Like the liquor store, for one thing, if we wasn't there, they make their money on buying liquor, but I think they make more money now, you know. So it's just a catch-22 situation, you know what I mean? Like, I figure that as long as we're there doing what we're supposed to do and keeping the place clean, which we have been doing, because I'm on the committee for that, and making sure that nobody loiters in the front or anything like that before it's time to open up. And if you go outside, go away from the place for about 10, 15, 20 minutes, wherever you got to go and do your thing, but whatever, just don't loiter in the front of the place because that makes everything look bad. And I'm on the committee to watch.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. Thank you.
Sherry Bunker, Annie Terry, and then Bill Spear.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for allowing me to talk. I'd like to also thank you for allowing the warming center to start up. We were able to get up and running Thursday. Calls for help were answered by Pastor Spear from Jordan's Crossing and Pastor Steve Terry from the Oroville Rescue Mission, and we're extremely thankful for that. The community also stepped up to provide a lot of needed things that we didn't have because it was just like a last minute thing. There's been almost probably 100 folks that have come through and sought refuge at the warming center from the cold and the wet. And I would like to implore you to continue to allow the center to continue to give comfort to these folks. Thank you.
Annie Terry, then Bill Spear, and then Kevin Thompson.
Mine's short and sweet. I just wanted to thank Pastor Kevin Thompson for accepting our help in providing meals at the warming center. It's been a good experience for our people at the rescue mission to collaborate with another agency and to offer hot meals to the people at the warming center. I think it's been a good thing. Collaboration is always a good thing. And I just want to publicly, as an organization, say thank you.
Bill Spear, and then Kevin Thompson.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, I'd like to pray for you all and for our city. Dear Heavenly Father, we are so grateful and thankful for another day of life, of salvation, another opportunity to gather in your name. And we do come this evening in the name of Jesus. And we ask your blessings upon our city, that you would continue to give us wisdom as we do the work you've called us to do. We pray blessings upon our city council, our mayor, vice mayor, all who serve in our city. You would encourage and strengthen our police department, protect our officers and our fire department, and thank you for the staff that you've assembled here for such a time as this. And we just pray that you would continue to bring provision and prosperity for our city. And your word, it says, we have not because we ask not. So we come this evening asking for our daily bread, our provision, for forgiveness, and for your guidance, your Holy Spirit, to lead us into all truths. And we do ask for the rest of the agenda tonight for supernatural wisdom, that we would go the way that you would have us go, instead of to the left or to the right, what is above and what is below. It says, your kingdom come, your will be done here on earth as it is in heaven. We want, Father, that for our city, Lord, that it would prosper far above our ability, far above our resources, for your kingdom and for your glory. We thank you for the ones that are stepping up for the homeless, and Lord, that you have a place for them, and for the prisoner and for the drug addict, that you would use us to be the solution. For yours is the kingdom, and yours is the glory, and yours is the power forever and ever.
Kevin Thompson.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members, we're just excited and we're thankful for this forum and this space, just to come and address you and just to say how pleased we are. And I think Don said it better than I could ever say it. It's just how important the Warming Center is. And I just want to tip my hat also to our own administrative LeGrone for calling and entrusting us to be a service at this appointed time in our community. It's heartbreaking when you hear the testimonies of individuals coming in and say that, it took 3 days for my body to thaw out. And I can't imagine that. They said my bones, even my hands and my toes, have finally thawed out. It took 3 days for this to happen. So I'm standing before you today, hoping and praying that you would just consider this one thing. We have a moratorium, if you would, put on the Warming Center. We can't open the doors until it gets to be at least 40 degrees. And I'll tell you, if you walk out there now, even if it's 51 or 52 right now, with the wind chill and the water, the rain, I'll tell you, it's a tremendous hardship on those individuals that are unsheltered and without housing. So I would ask that you please consider to rescind that particular requirement at 40, and just allow individuals to come in out of the rain, the elements, whatever it might be. Throughout the night, we hear toilets flushing. So each time a toilet flush, that means that no one is going to the restroom in the streets or in front of someone's building. And other things, you know, people are sleeping like babies. And I can only imagine sleeping in the parks or wherever with one eye open. You can't get a good night's sleep. But these people come in, they watch TV, they play cards, they play board games, they do arts and crafts, and they just have an opportunity to be themselves, human beings. So please consider this, and we'll be more than glad to step up and be there when we can. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Mayor, that is the last public speaker.
Okay. Having no more public comments, looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
I move that we adopt the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
All right, at this time, we're going to.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I've moved over here. Our demographers need my spot. If it's permissible with the council and the applicant or the public hearing individuals, could we reverse 7 and 8 and do the tobacco ordinance first? I believe there's more people here interested in the tobacco ordinance as opposed to the districting, if the council has no objection with that.
Sure. At this time, we're going to open this up for a public hearing for item number 8. Do we have a speaker on this item?
Mr. Mayor, this is the same ordinance that we had at our previous meeting where the council directed staff to bring back the ordinance for the second reading to prohibit the sale of flavored tobaccos within the city of Oroville, including menthol. That included vape juices and other tobacco products. This is the second public hearing for this. We're tonight, our task is to take public testimony on this and then the council to vote. If the council votes in the affirmative on this, saying yes, that this is what you want to do with this ordinance, 30 days from tonight, this ordinance will take effect and flavored tobaccos will be prohibited for sale in the city of Oroville.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers?
Mr. Mayor, I do have public speakers.
How
I have
many?
7.
7.
Our first speaker is Ellen Michaels, and then Deanne Blankenship, and then Amber Hayes. So Deanne Blankenship? Or Ellen, okay, Ellen Michaels.
Evening. I just wanted to give you an update on what's happening with flavored tobacco policy in other local jurisdictions. Can you hear me now? Okay. I'd like to give you an update on what's happening with tobacco policies in other local jurisdictions. The city of Chico is currently drafting a policy, this similar policy, to prohibit the sale of all flavored tobacco products. They're also adopting a tobacco retail license law like you have here in Oroville. The county, our director at Public Health has asked the county if we can have a presentation at the county, and that has been scheduled for February 25th. So they will be hearing what's happening with flavored tobacco products in youth and what other communities are doing, and be asked to consider doing something similar. And I also heard today that Glenn County is looking at doing something similar as well. I also wanted to give a brief update on state law. SB 793 was introduced earlier this month. That would be a statewide prohibition on the sale of flavored tobacco products, but we really can't count on that happening. Other bills that have been introduced at the state level have been watered down, have been changed to the point where the authors and the health agencies withdraw their support So you have more power here locally than they have at the state level when it comes to the tobacco lobby. Thank you.
Deanne Blankenship, and then Amber Hayes.
Is that on? Yeah. Good evening, Mayor Reynolds, Vice Mayor, Council. I wanted to share some new information that just came out about a week ago. A recent FDA report found that in 2018, 75.5% of high schoolers nationwide used fruit-flavored e-cigarettes, and 38% used mint or menthol flavored. And between that survey and the same survey that was conducted last year, Juul, which is a very popular brand of e-cigarettes, voluntarily stopped selling fruit-flavored e-cigarettes, but they maintained menthol and tobacco flavored. So they just had the same survey results for 2019 came out. So since Juul stopped selling fruit-flavored, the high schoolers' use of fruit-flavored e-cigarettes has dropped to 66%, which is still unacceptable, very high. However, their use of mint and menthol flavored e-cigarettes has increased to over 57%. There's no change among the youth use of tobacco flavored e-cigarettes. So it's really clear that if any flavored tobacco products remain accessible, youth will continue to seek those products out because they taste good and they are addictive. So a local ordinance banning the sale of all flavored nicotine products, which includes menthol, can be a permanent solution to the assault the tobacco industry continues to wage on our youth. So thank you again for your leadership, and thank you for standing up for Oroville's kids.
Amber Hayes, and then Ashok, and then Harry Singh.
Hello, everyone. So, I have a different point of view. I personally am not actually affected by this whatsoever. I smoke, yes, I do, but I smoke regular. But I know a lot of veterans out there who like to chew, and they like to chew wintergreen, they like to chew mint, and they fought for the right to do whatever they want. And as far as I'm concerned, taking their rights away to chew because we're having a vape issue is not okay. If you want to deal with the vape, you need to deal with the vape. But you don't need to take everyone's rights away just because other people are making bad decisions. It's not really about every tobacco product that everyone's bringing to point. Everyone's bringing up the vapes, right? That's what everyone's issue is the vapes and the kids. I don't know any kids that chew. Why are we going after the chew? Like, seriously. I know a lot of older generations that like to chew, and that's their right. That's how I feel. That's my personal opinion. We shouldn't take away everyone's right just because a few, yes, they are our future, and I get that, but we can't forget our past. We can't forget who fought for us, and we can't take away their rights. If anything, just find a better band. Like, get parenting classes, get discipline classes, bump up what you would have done if something happens. Like, get more discipline when it comes down to it. They're going to get it regardless of what you do. If they want it, they'll find it. Kids will get what they want. But those who actually follow the law, those who do what they're supposed to do, are the ones that will be affected by this, not those who are already breaking it. Thank you.
Ashok, and then Harry Singh.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and members. I am not against to ban the menthol and flavored tobacco. We need to protect our children, but I am not agree to thinking only about city children's. Are the state, country and adjacent areas children's are not ours? Why we are not thinking about them? Is this the solution to ban in city that they go to buy to product in the nearby areas? What action you are going to take against them? If you see people's smoking in the city, are going to take any action against them? You are going to put them in the jail if they are smoking in this city? Why not? We already lose our 50% business due to casino because they have not to pay any state tax, excise duty, etc. Why after ban, we are going to suffer 15 to 20% more drop in business? Why customers stop our stores if they have to buy one thing in city and other in the adjacent areas. They go there, buy whatever they want, they can buy everything at one stop. We are going to lose our more business, and we have to pay our taxes, our mortgage, all the compliance taxes, how we pay them. If we have a less business, how we pay? We spend millions of dollars to buy the business, how we can survive? You are our fathers, you have to protect our business too. We are also city children, we are not the city children, we are also city children. I am hope, please care for us too. Thank you.
Harry Singh, and then Joshua Edwards. Okay. Josh Edwards.
Hello, City Council members. My name is Joshua Edwards. I'm from the African American Family and Cultural Center. I'm the Smoke-Free Outreach Coordinator. And I just want to congratulate you guys just for showing true guts last week and showing true leadership. If we didn't learn anything from yesterday, MLK, that change is difficult and it's not always easy, and sometimes it is uncomfortable. Suspensions have been happening over kids vaping. Interventions have been going on with kids because of vaping. And there's not enough health officials to go around and start teaching these kids how to not be indulged in these poisonous chemicals. People, they like to say that kids will find new ways to vape and new ways to get tobacco. And if that doesn't prove that this is addictive, then I don't know what does. The fact that they will go find off-the-market products to vape and to get their fix is a problem. If we eradicate these things, then they wouldn't be addicted in the first place to go find those off-market products. I don't think that we should teach our kids that we will fold because people are losing money. We cannot put profits over lives. We cannot tell them that, show them that for the right price we are willing to bend and break because some people are losing money. For the retailers, I say, how much is our youth lives worth? Is it worth a profit? I think that we should find new ways to engage our youth and teach them that they can live a healthy life, and that just because money is thrown by the tobacco products, we're not going to backtrack and change things. The youth that I have spoke with since the ban was passed through, they are excited. They are happy that their voices were heard, because 1 out of every 3 students are vaping. 28% are using e-cigarettes. So they are seeing it. They are seeing that it's prevalent in their schools, and kids are getting in trouble. So I don't think that we should change anything, but continue to have this ban. Thank you.
Bruce Baldwin.
My name's Bruce Baldwin. I'm with the Health Collaborative, former smoker, parent, and grandparent. Before I say anything, thank you for getting us to this point. And the comments made by Councilor Pittman, Thompson, and Reynolds last week, you really showed leadership. I really appreciate your willingness. I know it goes against the grain for some of you, but you know, this is a predatory industry that preys on children, and as a veteran, I fought for my right to come up here and try to get you to help me fight back against stuff like this, right? I'm very grateful to you. And listen, I heard people get up here and say it's just a family, and I agree. I am responsible for my children and grandchildren. But this is a multi-billion-dollar industry that spends billions of dollars a year and has shown their willingness to go to any lengths to addict children to make a profit, whether it's cigarettes, chew, or vaping. They have never relented in that. I'll give you an example. I was up at the Live Spot doing an after-school program a couple of weeks ago. Talked to an 11-year-old boy after I got done. He came up and said, "Hey, how can I help my brother quit vaping?" We chatted a minute, and turned out his brother had been caught at school vaping in the bathroom, so his parents knew and his school knew. So I said, "Well, but he didn't quit." He said, "No, he told them he quit, but he didn't. He's just hiding it better." I said, "Well, dude, you got to write him out. You got to tell your parents." He looked, I could see on his face, he didn't like that idea. And I'm like, "What's the matter? Are you afraid he's going to beat you up if you tell on him?" He said, "No, he can't beat me up. He's only 8. Now, this is what we're talking about, folks. an industry that is willing to addict 8-year-old children to make a buck. And like another speaker said, how much is enough? And you guys' willingness to fight back is greatly appreciated. Thank you, as a veteran.
Mr. Mayor, our last public speaker on this item is Bobby O'Reilly.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Vice Mayor. We all know my stance on this situation, this issue. I am a smoker. I have reduced my smoking by using what they call vape. I have gone from 3 packs a day and dropped that significantly. I hate smoking. I hate everything about smoking. I wish it was easy to just quit, but it's not so easy to just quit. So I understand some of the reasonings behind the decision of banning the flavored tobacco. However, I do respect the council. I do respect you guys as individuals. I do have to say I am thoroughly disappointed. I will never, ever, ever be okay with taking somebody's rights, government extension into somebody's rights. Tobacco was voted on by the people. It's a right of the people to go in and overreach, in my opinion, this is my opinions, to go in and overreach is unacceptable. As I said, I respect you guys, but I cannot see justifying banning of something that's legal. Had marijuana went through here last year and became legal, I couldn't say anything about it. It would be legal. At that point, it wasn't legal. You know my stance on it. This was legal. You know my stance on it. It's not for the government to overreach on. Thank you.
That was the last public speaker.
Mr. Mayor, can we take a 10-minute recess, please?
Yes. All right, if we can have order, we're returning from our recess. Please. Before we left for the recess, Madam Clerk, we were out of speakers. Do we have any more speakers?
Mr. Mayor, I do have 2 public speakers, and then that is the last of my speaker cards.
Okay.
I have Chloe Graham and then Evelyn Hogue.
Hi, Mayor and council members. I just came up here to talk as a high school student of what's going on in the high school still. So the chewing is still in our schooling system. Like, we have ag departments, and so out there in the ag departments, we do a lot of farm work. We're out there with the animals. Out there, the teachers can't tell you not to spit chew on the ground. They don't see it. So whether the teachers, principal, vice principal are seeing it or not, they're spitting it out in our ag departments because we're outside. And that's how they chew out there. And then they keep coming out with the new vapes. The newest one right now is the puff sticks. I go on my Snapchat story. My cousin didn't even vape. Now she smokes the new puff sticks because they're pretty and colorful. And she's a sophomore in LP. So if these keep continuing, I feel that our youth is just gonna keep moving on it. Thank you.
Evelyn Hogue.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I actually disagree with this statement because I personally do not like smoke or anything because I disagree with it, especially because I'm being a teenager. But I have seen a bunch of friends who did, and before the flavored vapes came out, they would smoke cigarettes, and I even talked to them like, oh, like, you know, they just said they vape because it's better than cigarettes. And I think a lot of adults have that point of view too, because it helps them stop doing it. Because I have college friends, and I see a lot of them, like, I've seen some of them even stop smoking by moving on to vaping. But I think even getting rid of the flavors, teenagers will just go back to like smoking regular cigarettes, which are worse, at least I'm pretty sure. And so even with flavors being banned, they're still just going to find something else and find a loophole. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that is the last of the public speakers.
Is there anyone who hasn't spoken on this item that would like to?
Good evening. My name is Lisa Torres. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. I used to be a smoker as well. And, thank God I quit smoking altogether. Quit smoking and drinking at the same time. That's a hard one. But I did it, and it was hard. It was hard, but you know what? You have to want to quit. And it's not all about, if you're going to quit smoking, quit altogether. Don't quit, use the patch, don't quit and substitute, because that's not quitting. That's just continue, that's just using another form of the same thing that you were doing before. And from what I've heard, I'm not too familiar with vaping. I've heard that, it messes with the kids, the chemical balance and everything like that. And that's not good for kids. We're trying to keep our kids healthy. It's so, they say we have to eat healthier. We have to do this, we have to do that. But if we keep sitting there having all these things that are on the market right now that are going to sit there and destroy our kids, how are we going to able to sit there and keep them healthy? We don't want our kids to go out and smoke. We don't want them to vape. But kids are going to do what they're going to do. But if we can reduce the stuff that's out there to entice them, we could go there. We don't want to sit there and put stuff out there. And it is colorful. It gets more attraction, But it's also at the same thing. The kids are doing it. The kids at Central are doing it. My daughter comes home. She says her friend got suspended because she was holding a vape. These are serious things, we have to look at, because we want to make sure our children do not have access to this, but they're getting it from other people. They're getting it from other adults or however they're getting it. But we want to keep our children safe, and we want to keep things, if we can keep things away from our children and be able to have control over that, I would appreciate not selling vape at all, because we want to keep our children healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. The reason why we're doing this, we want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to speak on this item. It's a controversial item, and I don't want anyone to be denied their right to speak. So please.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Twyla Laster. I am the project director of Saving Our Legacy, African Americans for Smoke-Free Safe Places. And we are funded by the California Department of Public Health Tobacco Control Section to educate and advocate on healthy smoke-free communities in 14 Northern California counties. We work with all the different counties and the cities in the state that are trying to make sure that they educate on this issue. Our colleagues with the California Health Collaborative, we're here to support them this evening. Our project was instrumental in providing education to city council members in San Francisco, Sacramento, Auburn, Woodland, and West Sacramento while they considered this issue and ultimately adopted their ordinances to ban menthol and flavored tobacco products. So tobacco and vape companies, as you know, have evaded the FDA ban on flavored cigarettes by adding flavor to little cigars and blunt wrappers and vape products with mint and alcohol and kid-friendly flavors. The FDA finally took a small step to restrict e-cigarette sales by issuing guidance prohibiting the sales of cartridge-based e-cigarettes that are non-flavored with menthol or tobacco. This means that as of February 6, many flavored e-pods, including the Juul and the Juul-compatible products, will no longer be sold legally in the U.S. However, this guidance is not comprehensive in its response to the epidemic of youth use and the deaths, as it does not restrict all flavors, and it does not include all e-cigarette products. And the ban does not apply to the tobacco products such as flavored cigars. So in the absence of FDA action, we actually have on a national level 57 jurisdictions in California at the local level.
Ma'am, time's up. Is there anyone else? Now's your opportunity. Having none, is there any comments from the dais? Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And thank you all for your comments, both positive and negative. A couple things I want to just make mention. I do have sympathy for the business owner that has these products. My bigger problem is how did the FDA or how did they actually get these products even approved for sale? That's where it should have been stopped before we ever got down this road. And the business owner does have my sympathy for that. But also, I can't knowingly vote for anything other than the banning of this material. I appreciate the health department's education at the high school. That was a enlightening presentation. I believe it was 2 hours. I would recommend every parent go to that presentation and that they have more of those presentations. It was a huge amount of information packed into a 2-hour slot. I also was presented, Enloe Hospital has a Facebook Live conference coming up on the 23rd at noon with Dr. Andy Miller from the health department giving a very upfront and solid educational presentation on this issue coming from the health department and from the hospital point of view. Encourage your students and fellow students to watch that. I know somebody in this room knows how to use Facebook, and I'm sure that would be a helpful communication method. To your others, the ones that decide to start chewing, ask them about trying to get life insurance. You will not get life insurance if you are chewing tobacco. I can guarantee you that. So they are putting themselves in consequences of financial burden they don't even know about yet. And I know many people that I know of personally that thought that was a good deal until they went to get their life insurance and they said, no way, can't get it, can't provide for your family. So there are unintended consequences with this particular product and other products that may go down the road. My fear is the next thing they're going to do is start putting nicotine in candy products for our kids. And if that's coming, then let's get ready for that ban too, because that's just nicotine hooking our kids is just wrong. So I appreciate all your efforts, both for and against. It's a good debate to have, and it doesn't make our job any easier, but it does inform us, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. I just want to address Bobby. Just let you know I hear you, and I'm not sure who else in the crowd is on the same lines of being more libertarian and keeping the government off our back. You're preaching to the choir. This is where it's at for me. It's about the kids. And personal opinion, I don't think the state's doing its job. For me, this is, I would like to see the state get some attention for our kids. They've spent a lot of time with straws, plastic bags, ammunition, guns, and I just don't think this is an area that they've given enough attention to. So until the state does its job, I would like to see this stay out of our town. It's still available, as you know, and you drive around, so it's not like you're not going to be able to have access to it. But again, until the state does its job, I don't think this is welcome in our town, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I want to echo the sentiments of Vice Mayor Thompson. That being said, as a community, we determine our standards. And the bigger picture is our obligation to public safety. And so you weigh that out with our liberties and our freedoms that we have as a society. And when you look at the data and the information that's before us, and just looking at the current CDC documentation regarding this very serious issue. So when you see individuals hospitalized or even worse as a result of these products, to me at some point then government has that responsibility to step in and protect the public from just the potential of something happening to you. And when government fails at that, people often ask, where was that oversight? Where were those city codes that required whether it was a bridge that fell or something else that happened to the public that caused injury or death or were just terrible consequences? And so so we take, I think, our role and our responsibility very, very seriously and evaluate the information. I feel that every council person, the mayor, has weighed out all of these issues, and even to some of the issues that were brought to us in writing, which I appreciate the challenge. But yet I still see that though some of the people that died was because of making their own cocktails and or misusing product over the shelf, there are still enough situations here that can't be accounted for. I'm talking about deaths and hospitalizations of vaping, where the people purchases that product over the counter, and the result was hospitalization or death. And so for me, that then comes to that level where then we have a responsibility. And unfortunately, the federal government or even the state, they're trotting somewhat behind, but they'll probably get there. So again, it's just, we weigh out that responsibility with a great sense of purpose, and it's no small thing. It's not a trite thing to weigh in and say you can't do this anymore. That's very serious, and but yet our lives are even more serious, and our responsibility ensuring public safety trumps sometimes our personal endeavors, our likes, our wants that we want to do. And in this case, I think this particular cause reaches that level. So that's for me kind of the encapsulation of this issue. It's public safety, and it's our responsibility to that. And so that goes even beyond the kiddos, right? I mean, that's obviously a big deal, and we have a responsibility to protect the vulnerable amongst us and the children. And we all know, I think here, we're all responsible adults. We understand all that goes into that. And we've looked at the data. We know our children and the vulnerability that's there. I don't think anyone needs to be lectured on that. But so we as a society, we have that responsibility. So I think at the end of the day, I think that the expectation of our community standard is we're going to do the right thing in this case. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other comments from the dais, I have a couple things I'd like to touch on. At one time, every drug was legal in this country. Every one of them. So thank God that, or thank goodness, I'm sorry, we're in the government. We know who's responsible. So thank goodness they stepped in and saved us from ourselves. And I'd like to tell you a story about my mother. 70 years old, smoked 2 packs a day for 55 years. Now, we grew up with my mom always smoking. One of the most wonderful people you'd ever meet in your life, and dedicated to her children and family, dedicated to her home. But she always had a little bit of yellow on the front of her hair from that cigarette smoke. And when she turned 70, my sister said, "You should come in and talk to Mom. There's something going on." So I went in, I sat down, and I spoke with my mom, and I could see that the answers weren't quite right. So I told her that I thought we should go up to the hospital, and we did. She was in cardiac arrest, and she was getting 31 heartbeats a minute. Her heart was over 90% damaged from smoking. And 9 days in ICU, prayer chains around the world, prayer warriors around the world. After 9 days in ICU, they told her she needed a heart transplant. Go home. Go home for 3 weeks and we'll look for a heart for a 70-year-old woman. And come back, follow this diet, quit smoking, do not smoke. And follow this diet, follow our instructions, and come back in 3 weeks and we'll start prepping you, hopefully for a heart transplant. So my mom, strong as she was, one of the best examples I have of strength. This 7-year-old woman, she quit smoking. She never touched a cigarette again. Cold turkey, whatever you want to call it, after 55 years. And we took her back to the hospital, back to the doctor after 3 weeks. And the nurse was in there, we were all in there, gathered around, waiting to hear the plans, what we needed to do next. The doctor came in, he looked at her chart, he looked at her, and he looked at her chart again. And he asked the nurse, "Is this her chart?" And the nurse said, "Yes." He said, "Well, I don't know what you've done, Mrs. Reynolds, but your heart has 100% rejuvenated itself. Go home. Go home and live your life and keep doing whatever you're doing." And we got 10 more years with my mom. And she got to pass away with the dignity of old age, not from disease, not from some chemical breaking her down, but with the dignity of life well done. My parents didn't even drink, but every one of us, 9 children, at one point, drank. Some of us tried other things. My parents never messed with any of that stuff, and they were strict on it. So when I hear that this is a parenting issue, I'm a little miffed by that, because parents do everything they can, or at least most of the ones I know, love their children and do everything they can to ensure their safety. My own children, you've heard me talk about them. I'm proud of them. They've served in the military and are currently serving in the military and are straight A students, going to college, all of these things. I think we did a good job as parents. But what would have happened if they would have chose to try something or do something else? What could we do about it? Society tells us that we can't even, we can't even know when our child's going to have an abortion. We can't know that. The teachers can't. The school can, but we can't know. So when you try and blame it on the parents, I'm sorry, you lost me there. So, hospital beds, I'm sure that we've all stood over a few. What we do if we were standing over the hospital bed of our own children, our own child, knowing that we did everything we could to give this child life, and some strange entity, far away, evil, I would say, because anything that takes a chemical, a pesticide, and ingests it into our children, I would have to say that that was evil. And who would we be angry at? Who we would be angry at the system for not stepping in, for not protecting our children? Well, I'm going to tell you what, I don't want to be standing over any hospital beds, whether they're my own children or not my children. I've stood over plenty, and I don't want to be standing over any. Thank goodness I haven't known anybody personally who this has affected to that level, but I know people who have, believe me. And lastly, I'm going to comment on the new and I'm going to say new and improved because this is new and improved for the distributors. They've got an item out there called puffs. You're right, young lady. And someone commented last meeting that, well, these vapes cost $70. What child could afford that? Well, they got around that because the puffs cost $5. And we have, I'm not going to target any group of people, but we have unhoused or indigent people that are their budgets are very tight. So they're hanging around these stores, these markets. And for a couple of dollars, they'll go in and buy these puffs for these kids. And it happens all day, every day. So all of the arguments have fallen short with me. I'm against people controlling a lot too, but thank goodness they're there, because sometimes we are out of control and we don't even know it. Can I get a motion, please?
Yeah. I'd like to move that we adopt Ordinance 1841, amending Sections 1704-060, 5.28.010, and adding Sections 5.28.095, 5.28.130, and 5.28140 of the Oroville Municipal Code regarding prohibiting the sale of flavored tobacco.
I second.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
So we cannot sell after
30 days, sir.
Thank you. It was better if you were 6 months.
Okay.
Okay, if there's anyone that would like to clear the council chambers that were here for that item, we'll give you a few minutes. Good night, sir. You had opportunity to speak. Good night. For you. Anyone else wish to leave? Please. Okay, moving on to item number 7. This item is open for public hearing to receive input regarding transition to by-district elections for council chambers, or council members.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. This item is a public hearing to receive input regarding our transition to districting as opposed to at-large elections. We have representatives of the firm Q2 Data and, I'm sorry, I just lost it, and Research LLC with us tonight. I'd like to introduce Karan. She will be presenting this item tonight to you and providing you the information and answering the questions that you have regarding this.
Microphone. I will. You are.
Hold on.
It's on?
The clerk has the control.
There we go. Okay, one more time. Thank you very much for that introduction. Mayor Reynolds, Vice Mayor Thompson, and members of the City Council, thank you for inviting us to come and work with you on this item, districting. I have a presentation prepared for you that I would like to just go through. It's just a few slides. And I very much welcome questions about any of these items afterwards. So let's just get started. Okay, so introduction and background. The 2001 California Voting Rights Act, CVRA, expands on the Federal Voting Rights Act by making it easier for members of a protected class to prove that at-large elections dilute their voting strength. So the reason for why we're here is because of that particular law. And you are, of course, not the only jurisdiction that has received what is called a demand letter. Cities throughout California have transitioned since the CVRA was enacted from at-large to by-district elections. And in November of 2019, you, of course, know this, you received a demand letter from an attorney asserting a violation under the California Voting Rights Act. And in December, you adopted a resolution of intent to move from at-large to by-district elections. So the CVRA is a very interesting act. It moves very fast. It has very strict timelines, and that, of course, makes it incredibly challenging to implement it. And I'm sure your city attorney has already talked to you about this. It's a very compressed timeline, and we need to move very fast. The entire process has to be completed in 90 days. There are 5 hearings that must take place. 2 hearings have to be held prior to creating a draft map. The first of those 2 hearings is today. And at the 5th hearing, the council can adopt the new city council boundaries. The process that the city is entering is called districting, as opposed to redistricting, which is what people usually talk about. That is, once you have districts already and you're redrawing them, and that happens after the next census is released, and once you have new information about where the population of Oroville lives and how many people are in the city of Oroville. So what is districting? In a district-based electoral system, representatives are elected from districts by the voters that live in each district. Districting is the process itself, that's what we're doing right now, of drawing the boundaries that divide the city's population into the districts. And for everyone who's here and who's listening, thank you for coming. The city has implemented a transparent public process to draw the districts and enable residents to participate. So there's no smoky back rooms. This is what you always hear about redistricting. In this particular process, it's not a smoky back room. We are conducting a completely transparent public process that everyone can participate in. If passed by the City Council, once we have districts, they will go into effect with the November 2020 election. So it's a pretty quick process, as I said. So how will the process work? Let me move you through this really quickly. There are 2 City Council hearings to gather input, and this is all part of the law. On January 21, that's today, and then February 4th, so just a couple of weeks from now, the council will ask for input from the residents of the city to help shape the districts. And I would like to point you to the handouts that are over there on the side. There's about 5 handouts that you can take with you, you can share them. They will tomorrow be on the website. If you take a look at those, they explain the process. They will give you some of this information that's here and much more. There's a glossary, for example, and some forms to fill out if you wish. And whatever input you give us, please leave some tonight, will be used by us to inform the draft maps. Because at this point, to my colleague Tamina, who's right there, she's the lead mapping consultant, GIS consultant on this project, and me, at this point, we just know where your city boundaries are. We don't know a whole lot else. We know something about, what the census tells us, but we don't know about what you need in a district. So we are really looking forward to hearing, of course, from the city council, from the mayor and vice mayor, but also from the population and from the residents of Oroville. So we will release draft maps. Again, this is a very, very fast agenda. On February 18 already, so less than a month from now, we will have draft plans that will be available for comment online and elsewhere. And then right after that, 2 weeks after the draft plans are released, the City Council will meet again and will gather some feedback from everyone on these draft maps. There's another City Council hearing on March 17, and again, more feedback is appreciated. And at that point, adjustments can be made. And you see that Tamina has a pretty elaborate setup here with the second monitor and so forth. So we will have a mapping software available, and we can work from these draft maps and make changes that you're directing live and in public. So we can try things out if you want to. If you like them, if they're perfect, well, that's great. But chances are they're not going to be perfect. So if you'd like to make some adjustments, we can make them then. The ordinance will then be read probably at the fourth meeting, and then finally there will be an additional meeting scheduled where you can then vote on the ordinance and adopt the new districts. The process really depends on collecting data through community input, and I'll go into this in a moment. And there are various ways to give community input and let us know about your community. One is, of course, here at a hearing and at the other hearings that will take place, and then also through mailed or emailed submissions. So when and where are the hearings? I just mentioned it. Here, it's one more time. Today is the first hearing. The second one is February 4. Then we will have the draft maps. Then the feedback for the draft maps or about the draft maps will be March 3rd and March 17. And then a fifth hearing date will be announced very soon to vote on the ordinance. Let's talk about how these maps come together. So there are 5 criteria really that are used for drawing districts, and these are not unique to the city of Oroville. These are criteria that are used everywhere. In any jurisdiction you go to, the state used them for the state redistricting, for the assembly districts, for congressional districts, so this is not news. The first one is equal population. The second is compliance with the Federal Voting Rights Act, so this is different than the California Voting Rights Act. Because once you have entered into this process of intending to redraw, to basically go from at-large to by district elections, you have entered Federal Voting Rights Act territory. The California Voting Rights Act at this point has just gotten you there. Then there's contiguity. Yes, please. Mm-hmm.
Certain type of population.
We'll get to that
voters.
in the next slide,
Okay.
but it is everyone. Equal
Okay.
population is everyone,
Great.
yes. And I'm going to go through all of these criteria in a little bit more detail in a
Okay.
second. So this is your preview, okay? So the third one is contiguity. The fourth is compactness. And the last one is respect for communities of interest. And now I'll go through them one at a time. So criteria 1 and 2, equal population in the Federal Voting Rights Act. The U.S. Constitution requires districts to have reasonably equal populations. And we hear this talked about as one person, one vote. It's something everybody's heard. And that's really what they mean. They mean that, when you're living in a district, you should not be living in a district with 200 people and your neighboring district only has 2 people in it. Because then the people that are there with only one other person, their voices are really weighted much higher than yours. You know, your vote's basically being diminished. So what we do after each census, once we get the population, is we equalize the population. The 14th Amendment also, which is the equal protection rule, it prohibits intentional discrimination because it's a violation of equal protection. The jurisdiction is treating residents differently because of race and thus not according them equal protection under the law. So that is the Federal Voting Rights Act. And then there's the 15th Amendment, which bans racial discrimination in voting. We talk about these two criteria as the tier 1 criteria. Those are they are kind of the predominant criteria in a redistricting. And those are the ones that you really have to deal with first. And then everything else comes afterwards. 1 second, I'm getting to that slide. So the ideal population per district is going to be everybody who was counted by the census. And at this point, even though we're in 2020 and the census is going to be conducted on April 1, 2020, and please everybody participate, everybody's going to get counted because we don't have those data and we won't have those data back until 2021. And unfortunately, you got that letter in 2019. We now have to use the 2010 census data. If you're Googling or Wikipediaing, if that's a word, the city of Oroville, you actually will see the wrong total population on Wikipedia because they didn't have the proper city boundaries at that point. The census has released a new total population for the 2010 based on the 2010 census collection for the city of Oroville, and that total population is 18,725. That's total people that were counted in what is now the city of Oroville with the city boundaries as they are now. And we verified those. Of course. Yes.
You're talking about one man, one vote. I understand that. But where do registered voters and non-registered voters play into that?
They actually don't, interestingly enough. You're really only looking at registered voters if you're looking at Voting Rights Act compliance. But in general, when you're looking at drawing lines, you're not looking at registered voters at all, or voters, or citizens, or anything else. And that's basically you equalize the population based on everybody who was counted. And yes, that sometimes results in districts that have many fewer voters and actual participants than others. But on the flip side, you could, of course, kind of start talking about that issue in various ways. There are a lot of people that are registered to vote, but then they don't vote, or people that are eligible to vote and they choose not to register. So it's a much bigger topic, really, than just redistricting, But the law is such that this is what we have to do.
What's your benchmark for the one man, one vote? Is there an age?
No, it's everybody who was counted. So everybody who is, basically it's everybody who was counted in the census gets assigned to a district.
So even children?
Yes, everybody. Children, anybody who filled out the census form or who had the census form filled out for them. That's how it works. So at this point, we're going to be drawing 6 districts. The way you figure out how many people should be in each district is you take the total population per census from 2010, you divide it by 6, and then you get your ideal, what we call an ideal population for each district. Yes, please.
For clarification. So
Yes.
you're saying even undocumented folks are counted,
If they filled out the census form.
which, and they're, of course, obviously encouraged to do that.
They are currently very much being
So
encouraged
just
to.
a little bit of an irony there, because that kind of dilutes in a roundabout way, in a way that this is actually supposed to protect.
Mhm.
Just something to consider.
I see what you're saying,
See the
but
point
let's
on
just
that?
say,
Yeah.
let's just say you have a lot of undocumented people in your particular.
And I don't think we do, but I just for argument's sake, it was just an observation, just listening to you.
Right.
It kind of bubbled up in my head.
Right. It's that it could be a percentage of children in a particular district. I mean, there's
other
really
factors, sure.
various, there's other factors
no
also.
perfect world.
Definitely not perfect. Most definitely not perfect, but we do the best we can with what the law tells us we have to do.
I'd just like to add one thing to that. In the current political climate, it's probably in most undocumented people's best interest not to be counted by the census. And that is a major concern, that they will not be counted. But I think that that's the more likely scenario that we would probably see.
Continue.
Hold on. Ready.
Okay, so I'll move on to the next slide. So how equal is equal? Now, of course, we talked about a particular type of equality here. That's not what that slide's about. There are different standards for different jurisdictions. So congressional districts are held to strict scrutiny, which means you have to be very, very equal when you're drawing districts. If you're looking at California's congressional districts, they really just vary in 1 or 2 people, which was not easy to do. Tamina and I can sing you a little song about that because we were the consultants to the Redistricting Commission, and we sat there and figured out how to do this. So it's difficult to draw those. The lower level districts have a little bit more flexibility. They have to be reasonably equal according to the law, and there's a little bit of deviation and a little bit of flex room available. And that's a really good thing because when you're meeting these criteria, they are not all easy to meet at the same time. Perhaps you want to keep a community together or so, but you need a little bit of wiggle room. So for that, you have plus or minus 5%. You could probably do a little bit more. Sometimes we try to not go over a total of 10% because you don't want somebody to come in and say you're malapportioning. And the malapportionment, again, goes back to that whole equal population, 20 people in a district versus 200 in a district. That's just not what we want to end up with. So we try to kind of stick to this and, we are your consultants. We want to make sure you succeed in what you're doing. So we really think this would be a very good rule to stick by, if at all possible. So the Federal Voting Rights Act, I want to walk you through this a little bit. Tamina and I have done an analysis of it and of Oroville with respect to the Federal Voting Rights Act. And so we are still in that particular area, but we don't particularly have to necessarily draw a Voting Rights Act district per what we found so far. I'd like you to know about this anyway. Section 2 in particular is still very, very much active. You may remember that there was a lot of talk about part of the Voting Rights Act being thrown out about 10 or 9 years ago or so. So this particular section is still alive and well, and it prohibits the denial or abridgment of voting rights on the basis of race or language minority status. And language minority status is defined as being of Asian, Native American, Alaska Native, or Spanish heritage. It does not apply to other language groups. So, your Norwegian speakers are not going to be protected by the Voting Rights Act based on being a language minority. It prohibits practices that have the purpose or effect of discriminating on the basis of race or language minority status, and it applies nationwide to all jurisdictions that conduct elections. So it's not just here, it's everybody, it's the state, it's every city, it's every county, it's every water district, it's every place where there's going to be districts. Federal Voting Rights Act and districting, there's this term called vote dilution that you keep on hearing. And what is that? So electoral systems can limit the ability to elect a candidate of choice by a protected class of voters in various ways. So one is, and this is something we're talking about right now, an at-large election system can make it impossible for even a large minority group to elect a candidate of choice when the majority votes against them. And that of course makes sense because, if you have just a small minority group and everybody's voting on the same ballot and, let's say the minority is just voting the same and everybody else votes differently, the minority group's just never going to succeed in electing somebody. So one of the remedies for this is also going to district elections. That's not why we're here. We're here because of the California Voting Rights Act, but this is kind of mimicked on the Federal Voting Rights Act. Systems that limit the ability to elect in this way are said to dilute minority voting strength. And a districting plan, can dilute minority voting strength through 2 main ways, and this is also the terminology that you'll hear a lot. One is cracking and one is packing. So you draw a district and you take a viable population, a politically viable population concentration, and you basically crack them into 5 different pieces so that they are still a minority when you're done drawing your districts. So that is called cracking. That is not permitted. And then there's packing, which is if you could perhaps draw 2 districts for a particular group, but what you're doing is you're packing them all into one district so that they can only elect 1 person rather than 2. And that is also something that is not permitted. And that's something we see a lot in the South. And if you're Googling redistricting and whatever has been going to court in the last couple of years and whatever has gone to the Supreme Court, in particular Texas and so forth, those are the 2 things that they're usually talking about. So you see this a lot. Supreme Court opinions, though, on the flip side, have also limited the role that race can play in districting. Race cannot be a predominant criterion in line drawing, so you can't just, go in and say, I'm just going to take this particular group, I'm going to take all of my Latinos and I'm just going to put them into this one district. That is also not allowed, because race should not subjugate traditional districting principles, and traditional districting principles are our other districting principles: compactness, contiguity, and communities of interest. So we have those to kind of keep everything in check. And that's what kind of makes districting and redistricting very interesting and very challenging at the same time, because all these criteria, they interact with each other. And you have to figure out how to meet them all without running afoul of something. So on one hand, you have to make sure that you meet the criteria under the Voting Rights Act, but on the other hand, you can't really look at race as a predominant criterion. So you're constantly juggling. District appearance has been very important in some cases, and this is something that will ring a bell when you're thinking about what everybody knows when they say redistricting, which is gerrymander, right? Looks like a salamander. And how do we know that something is weird? Because it looks weird. So district appearance has been very important in some cases. So let's get to our traditional redistricting criteria, or districting criteria in this particular case. We have compactness. It's not that difficult to understand. It's a geographic criterion. It addresses geography, so there are many different ways to measure it. What the courts say, it's assumed to guard against all types of gerrymandering. Drastic departures from compactness are a signal that something may be amiss. Think about that salamander, right? That was not a compact district. It looked like something you see under a microscope in biology class. And if something looks like that, then somebody may ask some questions, and they asked questions and they found that it was a gerrymander. So that's what happens. Most complaints come from appearances. Does a district look funny? In a very important case called Shaw versus Reno, the justices said, we use the eyeball approach because appearances do matter. And then there's contiguity. Contiguity, again, is a geography criterion. A contiguous district is one in which all parts are connected somehow to each other. So you should be able to get from one end of the district to the other end of the district without crossing the district boundary. That gets really interesting if you have a water body in between and you have to equalize your population, but you don't have enough people on one side of the water. And sometimes, there's a bridge or something, so it can get interesting pretty quickly. And then we have communities of interest, and this is something where we really need everybody's participation, because the contiguity and compactness and equal population, we get a lot of data from the census. What we don't get any really information from anybody from, except for you and the people that live here, is communities of interest. Council districts shall respect communities of interest as much as practicable, is usually how we talk about it. Communities of interest generally refers to a contiguous population, so it's in one piece, that shares common social and economic interests. A fellow districting consultant at Q2 always talks about the community of people that love dancing cats. Well, if you are part of the community that loves dancing cats, they may be distributed throughout Oroville, but they may not be in one piece of Oroville. So there may be a couple of people here, a couple of people here, a couple of people there. It's not a contiguous population, so it's probably not something that we would want to take into consideration here, because we need people that are kind of living together in a smaller area. Communities of interest are not districts. They are usually much smaller, and they can be used as building blocks, though, for districts. And as I said earlier, there are no data sets really available to define communities of interest, so we build data sets here, and we do that by getting community input. And let people tell us what they need in a district and where they live and where their community is and perhaps where their neighborhoods are. So who defines a community of interest? You do, everybody here. The law does not limit the kinds of interests that may bind a community, and it's really up to those that live or work in the communities to identify and establish them. You don't have to have an interest, a shared interest that is limited to the current situation. For example, if you're working toward a park or some sort of recreation facility or something like that, or you're bringing an employer in, that is a goal and that is an interest, and that may unite you in your area of town. They can vary in size. They're mostly much smaller than districts. Sometimes they're bigger than districts. We're open to hearing from anybody and from everybody who is part of Oroville. So the city really will need input from everyone to define these communities. And again, as I said, there's a handout there that explains what communities of interest, how to define it. You can fill it out. You can leave it here. You can tell the council about it. You can email us, write us, come to another hearing. Please just participate. There are various interests that are usually falling into these couple of categories. For economic interests, the current situation is oftentimes we have a common employment or a common employer here, common economic opportunities or lack thereof. Goals could be expanding these opportunities, development, bringing in businesses and jobs. And then there is, of course, social interests like schools. We organize around a school. There's shared culture, shared language, transportation, parks. Goals could be to improve recreational opportunities and so forth. Public safety is usually one we hear a lot. And neighborhoods are very often thought of as communities of interest because they already have like meetings and so forth. So how to document it, as I said, there are some handouts there and a form to fill out if you wish. Just answer the following questions. Think about it like this. What bonds your community? What defines your community? What's your mission? What's common in your community? And sometimes it's easier to think about what's different outside of your community. Sometimes there's like maybe a street, and on the other side of that street, it's just different people. They just work on different things. They care about different things. So that might be helpful. And then where is your community located in the city? We would like to either get a map from you or just write down the boundaries. And if you're going to speak here, Tamina has a map up. We have a pointer. You can show it to us. We will write it down, and then we can use all that information to create some good draft maps. And why should you participate? If it's not clear yet, we need to know where your community of interest is. So please do participate to give your community a voice and make sure it has equal access to the political process. To encourage citizens to register, vote, and remain politically engaged, and to help shape a districting plan that provides communities a meaningful opportunity to elect candidates who represent their interests on issues that are important to their lives. So how to get involved, how to learn more, please come to a meeting. We will tomorrow have a email set up that is districting@cityoforoville.org, and we will have these documents that are over there posted on this website link. It's http://cityoforoville.org/districting. So districting@cityoforoville.org or cityoforoville.org/districting. You can also submit some information here at the meeting by mail, drop something off at the city clerk's office. She has agreed to accept mail and participation documents. So thank you very much for participating, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. We have some questions.
Yes.
All these different parts of your presentation, I took notes on as much as I could, but can the council receive copies of
Absolutely.
what you have presented?
I think you have one.
No, I haven't found that, all of the things she's brought up.
Okay. I think the presentation will also be on the website tomorrow, and absolutely, we will absolutely get you the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me. Councilmember Pittman?
You mentioned the community of interest situation. Oroville's, I'm just throwing this out there because we are a little different. There's at least 3 different water districts. And I don't know how many maintenance and landscape and lighting districts.
Mhm.
And is that an eligible community of interest issue or not? Because I'm gonna say right now, our county clerk recorder is about ready to kill us. Because they don't even have a concept they could be prepared to handle this for Oroville, because we have so many different districts. Do those things, those entities become community of interest issues too?
I think the way to think about it is whether or not they're relevant for the work that you do. So if you feel like those other districts are relevant for the work that you do, and that those districts should in some fashion be kept together, and that would matter to you, then we can certainly look at them as a community of interest. The problem with integrating other districts is that they probably have different equal population criteria.
But the people vote in those districts.
Yeah.
So we can't exclude them, how do we adjust for them?
No, I think that everybody who lives within the city boundaries will be assigned to a district.
Understood.
So if they're outside of the city boundaries, then they're not going to be assigned to the district.
We have literally dozens of districts in the city boundaries.
Correct.
We don't have the water system, we don't have the sewer system, we don't have anything. It's
Right.
all going to be a huge gargantuan task.
Right.
And I'm just trying to find out if that is a community of interest issue, or do we put it to the wayside? I don't know, it's very strange.
I would say not necessarily. I think it would constrain you to get the best districts possible if you're also looking at those districts. I think if they are going to be relevant for the work that the city council does, then we can take a look at them. If you think that they are
Well, yeah,
communities of
we
interest.
spend the money.
You know?
Maintenance
Yeah, no, I
and
understand.
landscaping and lighting
Yeah.
districts, we spend their money.
And I understand also that the Registrar of Voters has a pretty tough job precincting, and they have reached out to the city attorney, and we've discussed this.
Right.
That we're going to take a look at the precincts whenever you have a rough draft and
I
see.
think there's 13 or 14 precincts.
Yeah,
So-
we have the precinct layer already, and we're going to make sure that if it doesn't matter for other criteria reasons, that we'll adjust the boundaries so that
Thank
they
you.
don't have to re-precinct, because it's a really tough job. And two elections this year, so.
Councilmember Smith.
It might be premature, but something that you said just in passing, which is that you've already looked at preliminary demographics, and it looks like you're not going to have some issues. Maybe you can just kind of give us a little peekaboo into that?
Absolutely, yes. So this is a little bit more detail on the Federal Voting Rights Act. So under the Federal Voting Rights Act, the way that you're looking at it is you're looking at citizen voting age population. So this is where your citizens come in, and people over 18. You're looking at citizen voting age population, and you figure out whether a protected minority group could potentially constitute a majority in one of the districts. And that protected minority group, and remember I had that slide that said who is a protected group and language minority and so forth. So it's race and language minority. So we looked at whether there is a protected minority group that is compact and contiguous enough to be able to constitute a majority in the district. And we have to look at citizen voting age population. And we did look at that, and we did not find a protected minority group that would constitute a majority. And we're going to do a little bit more work on it just to make sure we have all of our T's crossed and our I's dotted on this.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions from the dais? Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do have 3 public speakers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Our first speaker is Bill Spear, and then Kevin Thompson, and then Bobby O'Reilly.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, this really sounds crazy. The more I hear, the more crazier it sounds. One of the red flags is I see the appearance or the shape of the districts. Our city is will shoot a red flag right from the start because we have problems with our city limits to start with. I'm on Fifth Street and I can't vote in the election. We have an election coming up and people don't even know who's going to be able to run for city council. And so what about the rest of the voters that, would like to have a say, so you're saying if you live in this area, you can't vote on what's going on there if you live there. It's suppressing our votes. We have the legislative branch, which makes stuff, and they make a lot of funky stuff. And she talked about stuff being struck down. Well, it got struck down because someone stood up and they said, yeah, you have to draw lines. You have to draw the line somewhere. Well, we draw it here, and they made their case. I say that we take it to the judiciary and let them decide. We can make our case that we have issues with and it's gonna hurt more voters than their unintended consequences is gonna make this election coming up for our city unfair for a lot of people, unsure of which direction we're going. So the legislative branch is there for a reason, for when there's a dispute, they can look at, we can make our case. I've been my own attorney before. I wasn't very good at it, but I could probably beat this case for our city that, I had to fire myself. Anyways, I can make this case for our city that it's not right for our city and that we should have more time and that we need to get our boundaries.
Thank you.
Kevin Thompson and then Bobby O'Reilly.
I don't know if my question was answered.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, they're asking me to put the map up really quick and I can't have speakers and the map, so hold on one second. I don't know that that's possible. Yeah, that's not.
We've been here a long time.
I should have brought dinner.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know how you want to handle this. They're saying that they need the map up while the public speakers are speaking, but I can't have the timer and the map up at the same time.
I'll keep the time by
On the, because
manual.
you'll be able to see it on your side, but they
Okay.
won't be able to
I'll
see
keep
it.
track of the time.
What's
up?
I would, yes, you would do that. About the mapping itself, and, would we be able to, okay, I own 3 properties in the city. I own 3 properties in the county. And I'm wondering, because I have a vested interest here in the city, would I be able to submit a map as well? Okay.
Bobby O'Reilly.
Thank you again. Pleasure to be in your acquaintance. I know that this is unstoppable. It's out of anyone's hands at this point. I'm going to say it this time, and every date that was on that list a minute ago, I'm going to say it again. This is absolutely ridiculous. This is going to hurt our city more than it's going to help our city. The very things from what I took from that presentation, and not against the people who did the presentation, because it's not their fault, they're here to help us, but the information that they're receiving on the guidelines, to me, sounds like the very reasons they wanted to implement this district voting, for instance, race, for instance, minorities aren't taken into consideration, or some are, some aren't, or they're taking the kids into consideration when the kids can't vote anyway. I really wish they could have left our voting alone. Our city is well represented. Anyone of any race, of any ethnicity, of any gender was perfectly capable of running for a position here. Our last election, we had myself, Native American, we had Hispanic descent individual, we had an African-American individual, we had somebody who claims themselves as white individual. My point being, there are plenty of ethnicities represented in this town, and this thing is going to hurt us more than it's going to help us. I appreciate you guys and what you're doing, even though it's completely out of our hands at this point.
Mr. Mayor, that's the last public speaker.
I'm sorry we're eating up here, but we've been here since 3 o'clock. So, last public speaker, are there any more comments from the dais? Bill, do you have any comments on this?
No, sir. I believe all we have to do is receive the public testimony at this point. Will be taken by our consultants, and then we will be back at the next meeting to receive more information.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, can I just ask a simple question?
Yes, sir.
Can we advertise the next public event, like, majorly, because this is supposed to be a public hearing for this matter? And I know a lot more people that aren't here would have been here if they would have known or understood that this was for public input.
I believe the next one is the next council meeting, right? This is going to move pretty quickly.
Right.
Thank you.
And we will make sure that it's clearly posted. I'm sorry. Moving on to regular business.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. What this item is in front of you is just a report back to the council and to the community about what we've been doing for the last 6 months. It's easy sitting on the council and in the community to lose sight of everything that we've been doing and whatever happened to it. I would imagine that oftentimes you approve things and then you move on to the next, for lack of a better term, the next fire is started, so you're trying to put it out, and those things just kind of fade away. So what this is just an attempt to remind the council of the projects that you have directed staff to do and what the status of those projects are. That's in the first part of it. The second part of it is just to give you an update on what our building department has been doing and to make some recommended mid-year fiscal adjustments to that department. What we're looking to do in that department is we need to adjust our Bureau Veritas contract to include additional funding. The reason for that is that we have had an uptick in our building department and we have more people on staff now. We have a building inspector, we have a community development director, we have an engineer, and we also have a planner that we are working at full-time. So we need to adjust that contract. Where we're suggesting that the money comes from in that is we're also looking at adjusting our contract that we have with Bennett Engineering. Right now, we have a once-a-week engineer on site who is here. He's a very good engineer, and they do good work for us. However, he's only here 1 day a week. Bureau Veritas is providing an engineer 3 days a week, which provides better customer service. Oftentimes, when people come in, all they need is an answer to a question. And that's very difficult for people when they come down and all they need is an answer, and they have to be told that if you come back in 7 days, we'll have that answer for you. So right now, we're providing that with a 3 day a week individual. It also provides a better check and balance because you have an individual that does not work for the company where the engineering work would be being sent. Now, I'm not suggesting there's any impropriety or anything like that. It just creates a situation where it's just not a good one. You want somebody that from a different company sending the work there. So we'd make that adjustment there. Also, the council has received, been awarded the SB2 grant for $160,000. So we would use part of that money to also augment the necessary funding change to the Bureau Veritas contract to provide us the 3 day a week engineer and the planner and the building inspector. So we do need to make those changes. We will be bringing that back at the next council meeting as long as you're fine with those changes to give you the exact amount of money, where that money would come from and how we're going to accomplish that. Right now, we're just sharing with you some of the challenges that we have and the things that we need to do. The other thing that we are suggesting to do is Mr. Lando has been here as a mentor for myself to help me transition into this position. I believe that that time has come and went, and I'm not going to say that I don't need that anymore, but I don't need it as much as I did previously. What I really need at this point is somebody to project manage annexations that are going to be going on in the city over the next 18 months. I'd like to keep Mr. Lando on that contract, also using SB $2, part of the planning grant, and also some of the campfire dollars that we received to offset and mitigate the impacts of the campfire, which planning and building would be part of that. That's what that money was specifically for. So I'd like him to be the project manager for that, extending that for the next 18 to 24 months, or until we complete those annexations, because we have very large annexations in the Thermalito area of South Oroville, but also extending clear out to the forebay. And that is a very labor-intensive process that has to be done appropriately and step by step. So I'd like to also make that adjustment and bring those financial adjustments back to you. Everything else in the report that you have in front of you, we did take the opportunity to, myself, Ruth, and Mr. DiPaolo took the opportunity to sit down with each department and go over each department's needs with them. There's quite a list of needs of equipment that are not on here, that we will be bringing those at the appropriate time and in the next budget. But we also went over what are the staffing needs. Right now, we believe that the additional staffing that you originally provided in the budget is adequate. We're on task and on track of filling those positions. So we are still working at that. Our finance department is holding its own where it's at. One thing I would like to do as far as the finance department goes is to once again congratulate Ruth on her award for her CAFR this year. She's received that, I mean, like 5 or 6 years in a row. So, I mean, very job well done, Ruth.
Speech.
Well, we should be proud of Ruth. I mean, that's the finance department is one of the, they're an unsung hero of the city, really. You don't hear much from them or anything else, but you know, everything that we do, they are the lifeblood of what we do. I mean, if you cut that off, we're gonna have some real serious problems in this city. So what I'm looking for tonight is just direction from the council. If the council is satisfied with making the changes as suggested in the report, we will bring that back to you at the next council meeting as a consent item as to where that money's coming from and what those budget adjustments are. One of the other things that we'd also like to have the council consider as we move into the future is making a budget policy that allows some variation in purchasing. One of the issues we ran into this week is the fire engine that you authorized the new motor for. The cost of parts have went up, I believe it's $3,500. But since we came to council and we asked for an amount that was, I believe it was $48,985, and it was in an amount not to exceed, I don't have the authority to authorize that. So I'm gonna end up back at the council asking again to extend it by $3,500. So what we'd like the council to consider is a budget policy as we move into the future that says on an essential item such as a motor for a fire engine or something like that, a 10% variance is approved with a notification of the council at the next council meeting that you made that change and why you made that change. It just, because it's too restrictive now with it's very restrictive and it slows things down, and you know, as things change on a daily basis, if we don't approve it now, I'm kind of concerned, you know, well, heck, what's the next thing that's gonna go up, and are we gonna be another $50 off, and here we just never get this done. So that's just one of the things we ran into. So if you would provide me any input you could regarding this, or anything you'd like to see different or more of, please let me know.
Thank you, Bill. Councilmember Draper?
Well, I have a couple of questions here. We currently have the engineer who's here 1 day a week, and the cost of that was $350,000 for fiscal year 2019 to 2020. And now, because he'll be here 3 days a week, it's going to cost $580,000 at the top. My question is, why don't we just hire an engineer?
We have actually attempted to do that, and the salary in which we have put it out there for, we get no applicants. It's because the engineering field right now is very, they're in high demand and they're demanding very high salaries, so we're just not out there. Just for clarity on this, the $350,000 was for the community development director, a building inspector, and a planner. By adding the engineer, We've taken it up, the engineer, and expanding our, Leo would have to help me on this. What do we expand, Leo, to get up to the 508? Well, that also, well, let me back up a little bit. On $580,000, that's a worst-case scenario. That is the absolute most you're going to spend on this. They're estimating more like 480, somewhere in that area, but I went worst-case scenario in the report, so you know the worst thing you're looking at. 350 is what you're paying for Bureau Veritas right now. If we add the engineer as suggested, it's going to change it to, at a maximum, including your plan checks and everything that we send out, to $580,000. So it's not just an engineer that we're paying that amount of money for. It's several people that we're doing that. I like the idea of a consultant because in the building industry, as it ebbs and flows, we're able to size right. If we hire all these people, keep them as full-time employees, we have no opportunity, if the economy retracts, to retract our operation as well with it. With a consultant like this, we do. We call up the consultant and we say we no longer need this position, and we're done with it. So that's the benefit of that. So I hope that answers your question. We have attempted to hire an engineer. Last time we put it out, we actually didn't get any applications.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Can I just weigh quickly in on one item as well? Currently, we are paying $120,000 for 1 day of representation. You'll pay $167,400 for 3 days of representation under the new client.
Thank you. Okay, that sounds better. Thanks.
Vice Mayor Thompson.
Thank you. Do you know offhand how much we paid to Bennett last year?
No, it would be speculation. It was somewhere around in the mid-twos, would be my guess.
Mid-twos?
Yeah, about 250,000. That included, all of the extra.
Including the extras?
Right, exactly. The different tasks that were assigned. An example of an additional task would be the Wyandotte pipe that is collapsing on Lower Wyandotte. For the engineer to look at that, what we do is we hire them. It's an additional task order. It's given to them, and then they do the engineering, and we get billed for that.
Right. And what was this, if you can jog my memory, if you remember, what was the salary we offered for the engineer last time?
I believe the last time it was put out, it was 120 to 135. And we received 0 applications.
Anyway, I could get into some history, but it's no point at this point. And it's not your fault.
No, it's just a really hot market for engineers right now.
No, I mean, before you, our previous city administrator actually had a qualified engineer, at least in my opinion, that was living here in the city, was willing to be in the position, but because of the previous administration, that application never made it to the council. But anyway, in regards to I'm fine with most of the proposal you have here. In regards to the bump for planning with Veritas.
Yes.
I know that we're filling some seats right now, so how would that go into play?
That would, depending on how things all work out, if certain things that the council has authorized all happen, it would be a reduction in the overall cost of the Bureau Veritas contract.
So could potentially that item we maybe delay on?
Yeah, actually what we would do is once we make the changes, we would cancel that part of it, and it will be an overall reduction in cost.
Okay, and then regarding, just to give input on your report, great report, by the way, thank you. As far as Lando goes, I'm in full favor of that. Just to remind the community, because of Mr. Lando, there was $2 million that came to the city because of his work and efforts for our community. So I'm real grateful for that. So having him here with his experience, we all know that he has more experience than you in regards to city management and whatnot. And so having somebody like him working in a different purview, overall sense for the community is very valuable in my opinion, especially in the position and the current place that our city is with development and growth. It's very important and valuable to have somebody like him around. And last thing, in regarding the 10% variance, I don't have a problem with that. It depends on the budget, though, because if we're talking about a $10 million budget per se, 10% is a huge amount. $500, 10% is a different amount. So I would like more writing as far as 10% or, type of thing, because just to say a flat 10%.
Well, I think what we'll do is we'll bring something back just as a general guidance, because I know one of the things that the council hasn't liked over the years is to put a 10% contingency on something, because, and council's correct on this, every time we put a 10% contingency, it's amazing there's a 10% overrun.
Yeah.
So I understand that. So we will,
Yes.
we'll come up with something so that we bring something back that makes better, tighter sense.
And the value there is to make our city run more effectively, not to open ourselves up to be taken advantage of by people. But whatever we can do to make government run more effectively, those two words are kind of an oxymoron there. But whatever we can do to make, to make the community move forward without being taken advantage, I'm all on paper for.
Yes, the more opportunities we have to get out there and let everybody know we're from the government, we're here to help, the better off we are.
I mean, it's silly sometimes when we sit here and debate an item that's, a couple $100 and then pass $50,000 without blink of an eye, when, this small amount could just, anyway. It's just funny, the things we debate and things we don't debate. So. I'm done, thank you.
Councilmember Pittman?
Yeah, I have no problem with your report and the proposal that you have. I think it's all going to work quite well and to the benefit of the city. The one missing link that I have a concern about is when you have had a city engineer, and I understand all the engineering services are there. The other thing that has happened is the engineer typically was the grant applicant for a variety of road projects and road funding projects. So I'm kind of hoping that somewhere in this process, we're going to have some ability to be reaching out to those grant applications that either come through federal or state for a variety of things that has benefited this community. And somewhere in that process, and I'm not even looking for an answer tonight, but I don't want us to miss out on that opportunity, because many of our intersections, many of the things done to this community, like the Safe Routes to School grant, that has provided a lot of capital improvements. So I hate to see us lose that ability. And I'm not saying we need to hire an engineer to make those grant applications, but somewhere along the process, we need to have someone going after those, because that just benefits the community and brings our tax dollars back to us.
One of the things that our 3-day-a-week engineer will be doing is exactly that, is pursuing those types of grants. That's an expectation that we have from them. We're currently working with both of the engineers that we have right now on a new ATP grant for the transportation plan around the Oroville Foothill area, Olive Highway Foothill area, because we have a school up there where there is no sidewalks anywhere there. The children are walking in the street because they have nowhere else to walk. It's an unsafe area. I'm not really sure how it got approved the way it was approved, but it was, and it's what we have to deal with. Last week we did have a fatality up there of an individual that was walking, so it's a dangerous area. So we are working with our engineer, and we will also be working with Bennett on that application, because they're very competent and very professional at that. So we will be utilizing them to go after that. They were instrumental in the $3.4 million that we're putting into Oroville Boulevard for the curb gutter and sidewalk for the ATP grant there. So we will still utilize all those. We will still actively pursue all grants that are out there.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Goodson.
I just wanted to ask a couple of questions very quickly. Under the Affordable Housing Project Planning and Coordinating, will we still be looking at pursuing Jamboree Housing, the application process?
Absolutely. We will work with them. There's a specific property that we have in mind that we actually had a conversation about it today, and we will absolutely be still pursuing that.
All right, next question, thank you. What phase is the safety center dispatch in right now?
They are through their drawings and planning. I believe they've been submitted and approved, if that's correct. And I believe construction's going to start in the next few days, I believe. And they're
Alright.
expecting, I believe the chief told me, a 3 to 4 week turnaround to have it completed.
Thank you very much. We've been waiting on that for a number of years.
And we're also, you know, and I don't know if I missed it in here or not, and it may have been before this last previous 6 months, but you have also authorized a new building at the Public Works Yard. And we are actually in the planning and design phase of that right now, so that will be coming back to you.
All right, and just one other update in regards to the agreement with the YMCA for programming at the municipal. Is this still the, I don't know, I think it was put in the parking lot, the YMCA, the contractual agreement to develop and implement activities there. Is that what we're making reference to?
Yes, we have
For
actually.
Five-year increments?
Well, it's going to be a 1 year first.
1 year first?
Yes,
All
ma'am.
right.
We'll be bringing that back shortly. Right now, where it's at is it's went back and forth a couple times. The agreement, I sent it back to the YMCA right before Christmas. I believe probably because of the holidays, it's been delayed there some. So I hope to have that back to you sometime in February with a final resolution to that so that the council can give direction if they want to proceed with that particular agreement.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other comments from the dais?
Good job.
Do we have any public speakers on this item?
I just want to say, just
Mayor,
if I can, just one moment. I want to tell you guys, great job. I mean, I think you guys have done a great job. There's a lot, you know, anybody that looks at this list, if they really understood the amount of work that goes behind all of these things and all of the things that you have to stay on top of and manage, you guys have done a great job. I mean, there's an incredible amount of work here, so well done. I look forward to the next 6 months and, you know, hopefully we'll enjoy just as much success.
Thank you, Bill.
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any blue speaker cards for this item.
Okay, well, that wraps up our regular business. Moving on to reports, discussions, correspondence. Do we have any council announcements? Councilmember Draper.
You get this. Getting my microphone on. There we go. Okay, January 13th, I attended the Butte County Homeless Continuum of Care meeting in Chico, and there were some good things that happened. There is a new director. Tom Tenorio stepped down after 11 years as chair, and the new chair is Tom Lando's wife, Anastasia Snyder. Also, there were 3 nominations for the homeless representative chair, and Lisa Courier, who does mental health outreach in Chico, was voted in for that. Another good thing is that a housing navigator will be hired in the next month. Butte County will be doing that, and it's coordinated entry lead, and they're going to be doing case conferencing, among other duties, and they've had 72 applications for that position. And I'm sure Eric will have a lot more to add about that. I also attended on January 14th the rezoning meeting held at the African American Cultural Center. And it was a good 2-hour meeting and a lot of input from the public about what they would like to see happen in South Oroville. And we're hopeful that we'll see some positive results. Thank you.
Councilmember Goodson.
Thank you. Let me go in backwards order here. On Monday. Seems like eternity has passed since, and it was only yesterday. The annual Dr. Martin Luther King program was a success. Once again, we were able to award 9 high school seniors, college-bound, $500 each, scholarships, just to help out with some of the books, tuition, things of that nature. Very pleased with that. Once again, it was an extremely high volume of turnout. So I just want to thank the community for turning out. Once again, very successful. Let me move on to, I have a concern with the warming center. We had a few speakers in the non-agenda item, and I guess my concern is it's cold out there at 60 degrees, and I'm wearing my coat and boots. I'm cold. And so I have a question. What would be the process for that warming center to be opened up on a continuous basis at night when, you know, we need to set I believe, a higher limit of 50 degrees, let's say. And I did speak to our city attorney, and I know that in order to agendize that item, the minimum requirement would be a 24-hour turnaround. And I would just like to see the council consider changing that degree stipulation to at least 50 degrees. I want to thank Jordan's Crossing. Not only every year, you're always instrumental in setting up and tearing down for the MLK. You set a record this year, 40 minutes, and for your support of the warming center. I was there 2 nights in a row, and it was amazing how many people came in from the cold, and it's true. It took them hours to get thawed out. Thank you so much, Steve Terry and Annie Oroville Rescue Mission. I wish I could have had one of those meals. Mashed potatoes, green beans, fried chicken. It was delicious. From what I heard, I had already eaten, but I just want to thank you. And that's what it takes. It's a collaborative effort from everyone, and it does take a village, so I appreciate that. I was able to attend and weigh in on the Southside community, the community meeting that was orchestrated and spearheaded by Leo and Wes. Thank you so much. You really took a few bullets there. So thank you so much for facilitating that, and I look forward to ongoing meetings as well.
Councilmember Smith.
Just to speak to the COC, I appreciate everything that Councilwoman Draper shared. And just a little history. The previous council declared a shelter crisis here in Oroville, which put the city in line for receiving HEAP grant dollars. And that goes right to the COC, because the COC is the agency that receives that funding and then decides how that funding is dispersed. Haven of Hope on Wheels did not receive any grant funding, so which was very unfortunate, as they were an applicant. So it's so, and I say this for little history, and also just to say it's so important that we remain vigilant. That's why I appreciate Councilwoman Draper and her vigilance towards this cause, because we need to do a better job of addressing the COC, continuum of care, and because there's only a couple of us really with a voice for Oroville, and Oroville's impact when it comes to homelessness is lock and step with Chico. But the fact is that the majority of the funding to address that is up there. Really, those COC dollars, HEAP money, should be, I mean, Kevin should be getting that, a chunk of that money, period. And that in fact has not happened. So we're going to continue to remain vigilant to see those dollars come here. So our work is cut out for us. That being said, I spent 4 days at the International Sportsman's Expo in Sacramento, and so it was really just an awesome opportunity to represent Oroville, of all things, and recreation. And I spoke to hundreds of people, and let me tell you, the impression that people have of Oroville outside of Oroville is not what you might think. They think Oroville is all that and more. I did not get one negative comment from anyone. We love Oroville. We love the houseboating or the take our kids skiing. We had great memories, and on and on and on and on. Oh my goodness! So sometimes our own perceptions of what we might think others think. They think we're all that and more. So it was just really fun to be able to represent our community, shake hands, talk to people, and people had nothing but just warm glow, great stories, and are looking forward to coming back to Oroville to experience another opportunity with their family. So I just think it's important for us to be able to hear that. That's good stuff. So as members of our community, just remember, if you're a store owner, you're involved in engaging the public, just remember you're the face of Oroville, and so put on that smile and say glad to see you, and appreciate the folks when they come here to spend their dollars. Thank you.
That's encouraging.
Councilmember Draper.
I neglected to mention something with my earlier comments, but I'll be brief. The National Coalition for the Homeless Council has a great website, and they say that hypothermia can set in at 50 degrees for people that are out in the extreme cold. And also, people are susceptible to heart attacks because of the effect the cold has on their circulation. And so I'm with Councilor Goodson on this. I would like to have some input on maybe relaxing that 40-degree limit. Because we all know that it may say 40 degrees out there or, 42, but when you get the wind and the rain and you're not really dressed for it anyway, that, it can be really dangerous. So I don't know if, we would need to have a meeting in 24 hours, kind of talk over what that appropriate limit might be or what you folks would like to do.
The 40-degree limit with rain was, there was no one to make the decision, so I made the decision. It was an arbitrary decision made on my behalf. So what I'm looking for, what I'd like to have from our conversation today to get us to a point where we can have a meeting is some consensus about what the council would like to see, not necessarily direction, not necessarily a vote, just a consensus of what you'd like to see me do with my decision, if it needs to be, where you'd like to be at on that. We can leave it as it stands and schedule another meeting as soon as 3 days if there is enough vote for the council to do that. I mean, I'm open to anything on this. This was just something that a decision had to be made, and I made one. I made that based upon our same type of decision that we use for the cooling center, whereas if we had 3 consecutive days over 100 degrees, we'd have the cooling center open. So it was based kind of around that there are some parameters to it. What we don't want to have happen to us is have a situation where we have something 24/7.
Right.
It would end up costing us over $10,000 a month. I mean,
well, Pastor Thompson has already limited it, from 5:30 in the evening until dawn or sunrise. And my concern is that even if it's not that cold out, if it's raining, it might be advisable because, we normally don't have that much rain anyway, but I mean, when we do, it can be bad.
Sure. I mean, if we wanted to do rain,
just in the winter months, I mean, at least.
Right. I just need some sort of consensus of the council.
Okay.
I think in order for us to really discuss this much further, it needs to be an agenda item, right?
That's correct. But could it actually be an emergency, a special meeting within 24 hours?
I'm not sure that we have an emergency, do we meet the criteria for that, Sam?
Microphone. Oh, sorry. There we go. I think I've got it right.
You have it.
Kind of on the limit here in terms of it being an actual emergency, unless we know there's something happening out there that could cause it. I think you can probably make the criteria for an emergency, yeah.
That would have to be a call of the council then at that point, if you want to agendize and have an emergency meeting as early as tomorrow. Well, almost 8, so you may want to go till, and I know it's difficult, I mean, but you may want to go until Thursday morning early.
We'd have to provide a 24-hour notice before we could have that, so it couldn't be as early as tomorrow, we'd have to.
And just to throw it out there, I don't know the exact number, but the Mission does house, how many per night?
Right now, the Mission,
You're at
that's what I
capacity.
wanted to say. The Mission is stuffed.
You're at
I
capacity.
have, my chapel is full at night,
Kitchen,
my lobby is full. I have them sleeping in my kitchen. I have no more extra
Yeah.
cots.
Rough number?
I have, in a shelter that was built for 24, I have about 65 right now.
And how much does the city pay the Mission to do that every day?
Nothing.
Okay.
I heard the city attorney mention something, do we deem it an emergency? I believe in Chico already one person has died because of the severe elements. So I don't know where you draw the line.
I'm okay with it being agendized as a special meeting if that's the will of the council, but we would have to provide at least 24-hour notice of that meeting.
Right, right, yeah.
That's my only concern.
So as our policy is, if we want to agendize a special council meeting, it's either the mayor gives direction or 3 council members request to have it in a regular agenda. For a special meeting,
It's 3.
it's 3. So we need 3 people to add, I believe it's, I believe you're correct.
Yes, it is 3.
I think that 50 degrees is most of our winter. It's a tough situation to be in. I'm definitely not against helping. I've helped all my life, but I think when you open that door for 50, I think you're going to end up into a lot of money.
Would you like to have a special meeting scheduled for this, Mr. Mayor?
I cannot make a meeting tomorrow or Thursday, so I guess we can talk about this in a special meeting on Friday, provided all council members can make it.
Since this would be,
I can tell you personally, my next availability would be Tuesday. But you don't necessarily need, I mean, it's already Tuesday now.
so a week from today.
I balance about 4 different responsibilities.
Does any of the other council members have any restrictions? Does Friday work?
Friday works for me.
Depends on the time.
Maybe later afternoon would work.
I would like all council members' input.
Then that would be, the earliest we could do it then would be Tuesday of next week. Because or Vice Mayor Thompson has stated he's not available until Tuesday.
So Mr. Hatley, are you available on Friday?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm available on Friday.
Well, I don't know. From my way of thinking, it is an emergency, and, maybe we could make the meeting time, so that everybody could get here on Friday or Thursday. It's not an emergency for us because, I have flannel sheets on my bed and a down comforter. I sleep really warm, really well. But my conscience bothers me because every night when I go to bed, I think about those people that I see all over the streets of Oroville. And I can't understand, we don't have to say the limit is 50 degrees. I mean, we could talk about that. It could be much less, but at least let them have a place to come in out of the rain. The Terrys are maxed out. So this is not a matter of convenience. This is an important thing for people that are out on the streets.
I just need direction of when you'd like to do it.
If you go with that criteria, it's going to it's already been in operation for 5 days, and this will qualify the next 10, and that's what's available on the weather report. So what you're going to do is you're going to be qualifying the next 3 months.
Well, the criteria that currently exists is the one that I put in place, and that has not been changed at this point. The council is going to have to give me direction of what they want me to do. I did it, I made the decision because a decision had to be made, and I was trying to find some reasonable parameters for that. It was very cold, I mean, and it was something that needed to be done. Now, it may not have been, you know, all that reasonable, I don't know. I was looking for arbitrary numbers to give us some sort of a, you know,
I have a
line.
solution, possibly, to put us between here and next Tuesday, because I'm not going to be guilted into, I have responsibilities that are equally, they're important. So I think maybe a potential, since most of the nights meet the criteria, is for the council to decide to just leave it open until Tuesday when we can talk about this. But I'm not going to be guilted into moving. Yeah, it's not going to happen.
If the council chooses to do that, to leave it open, I will recontact the provider and I will attempt to negotiate a better financial deal. Because if it's going to be a continual thing such as this, we're going to have a better financial deal on this because we just can't.
This was a temporary thing that, because it was nearly freezing, is why you made the decision. So what we need to do is reopen it up to other agencies that will provide shelter as well.
We can look at that. I think probably what we need to do over the course of the next couple months is actually put this out there for a lot of different things and see, you know, the warming center, and see who can. I mean, because the bigger list that we can provide for people, the better. I mean, and you know what I would like to say too on this is I'm really proud of all of the local providers, the way they came together. I came in there too.
I am as well.
Yes.
The Terrys had brought over food and, you know, they had burritos that night and I'm telling you, they really smell good, but I thought, man, what a horrible picture if I'm sitting in there eating a burrito.
Absolutely.
And with the criteria, I'd like to add this in there because there are entities that participate in this effort, and it is an important effort. I'm not saying it's not. Please don't hear me thinking that this isn't important to me. But there are entities who are doing this and have been involved in this, and so to just say, well, you guys keep doing what you're doing for free, and for us to support another one for $350 a night, I don't think is fair. So I think a price per head would be appropriate if we're going to be doing this, and then figuring that out. Because again, if somebody's housing 60 people a night, and another place is housing whatever that might be, 20, and we're giving $350 to one that's housing 20, and then we're saying thank you to the one that's been doing the other for years in the community with nothing, I just don't see as
I understand what you're saying. What I'll do is what I'm hearing is we're going to move forward, leave it open until next Tuesday, at which time we will have had a opportunity to have a special council meeting to discuss this item and have come up with another resolution. I will also be in contact with the provider to attempt to negotiate a better financial price.
Hold that thought, Bill. Councilmember Pittman would like to speak.
Yeah, I'm changing the subject, so are we done with that subject?
I don't know. Councilmember Hatley, are you?
I just wanted to bring something up.
Go ahead.
The council didn't set the criteria for that, you did, so I'm trying to figure out why we need to vote on something if you wanted to change it and say, I'm gonna do this for 3 days or 5 days, or put a time limit or something on it until the body could get together, if that's what the body wants to do, and then say, okay, this is now the new criteria. But that's where I'm kind of lost, because I mean, we didn't do this, so it wasn't a council action that did it. So it was, to me, the administrator should.
No, I could change the parameters of that. I'm looking for the safe harbor and comfort of policy direction from the council.
Right, but what I'm saying is if we, if you did that right now till we could get the meeting or something, wouldn't that kind of take care of the immediate problem and then
I
we could all meet?
think
or-
that's what the decision is, but.
Yes, sir, that's what I'm going to do.
It was an emergency situation where we were down in the, near 30 degrees the other day.
Right, yeah.
And so that's why he.
No,
he
I know
made that
the thing we did
But now
that.
we're getting into a long-term thing that where it's going to be expending quite a bit of, taxpayer dollars. So
No,
that's
no,
why
I
we're
understand
moving
that,
to the
but-
next level.
What I'll
I
do.
was just talking about the parameters right now.
And what-
I know that we voted to say, yeah, do, or whatever, to do this
I will
deal.
get with the provider tomorrow and we'll set up some criteria. I understand what you're saying because there are gonna be a couple days between now and next Tuesday when it's going to be very, temperate outside. So, I'm not gonna say it's gonna be warm, I'm not gonna say it's gonna be freezing, but it is gonna be something that is, more, I don't know the best terminology for that. I will work out something with the provider and we will get something back to you and I will work within those parameters. And we will see you next Tuesday.
What time?
I would like to do it if we could at 5 o'clock, if that works for everyone.
I can do that.
Unless you prefer, I know that some of you work, so it's more difficult to do it during the day, so.
5's okay. 5? He said 5 o'clock.
Excuse me, Pastor Terry, did you have something to say?
I just have a question. Is this going to be open tonight? Because if it is, it's 8 o'clock. And I got a place called The Mission if we're gonna get food there.
Yeah, I don't think it's tonight. There's
I
no
don't-
rain. It's 54 degrees right now.
And I really don't think that the provider, the Haven Hope, is going to be able to,
That's
be able
another.
to, at this very late minute to say, hey, we need it is probably not realistic or fair.
Another point that we got to bring up is the Oroville Rescue Mission's been providing all the meals. At what reimbursement? Are they being reimbursed?
They're
under this?
doing it as a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm not sure if there's been any sort of financial agreement reached between the two entities or not. I'm not sure what that is. I know the city is not contributing anything toward the food.
Right. No, I know you haven't, Pastor Terry. I'm just making a point that some are bearing a lot more costs than opening a door.
Community has been donating as well, so we appreciate everyone.
Okay. Is there any more comments?
Yeah, I was a topic change, and I just wanted to report back, the last council meeting we had, the new affordable housing project for families out on Nelson and Table Mountain, and that project came before the Housing Authority last week, and we did approve it's called project-based vouchers, and we did approve that support for that particular project, so they're in actual memorandum of understanding with the Housing Authority to make that project move forward. We also approved 2 other projects, one in Orland and the other one in Gridley, I believe. So there are affordable housing projects coming up. It's just a tough nut to crack because it's very expensive construction cost. So just that's all.
All right, thank you. Future agenda items.
I would like to throw out the topic of the needle exchange that is going on in Chico. I've had a lot of constituents contact me concerning that they might consider doing it here in Oroville. And I don't know what the council's feeling is, but maybe we could have staff make some inquiries with the health department.
Would you like a presentation from the health department on, or?
Well, that, if they're willing to, but I gotta tell you right now, I'm pretty much opposed to the thought of it because what I've learned so far, it's a pretty negative program, but.
I will see what information I can get and get that to you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, do that without asking for a presentation.
Yes, sir.
Also, I'd like a report on the wall. Build that wall. Build that wall. Table Mountain wall. for
Yes, sir.
those
What we'll
listening.
do is we'll have our new engineer here and have him update you on where he's at with that.
Okay.
Administration reports. Ruth? Tom?
Just as I mentioned before, over the next couple of months, you'll have several studies to fund in front of you. The municipal services review we've talked about several times now, but also we have to do a development impact fee update every 5 years, and it's time. And in addition, you have a 5-year report on the expenditure of those funds. So within the next couple months, you'll see funding requests. The Nexus study, we can actually charge back to the existing development fees. That's all.
Bill?
Just a real quick couple of things. The first one is that at the last council meeting, Councilman Smith asked me for a policy regarding the repair of items. I've had an opportunity to talk with Councilman Smith and also Councilman Pittman regarding that. We'll be coming at the next council meeting with a policy regarding the removal of damaged property on city within a certain number of days. So we were able to, they were able to simplify it down so I understood, even I understood what they were asking me to do. So you'll be seeing that. The other thing that we have going on in the next, I believe it's February 8th, is a Rotary Roundup. It will be at I believe the Gold Country Casino this year. The city is traditionally asked to purchase a table for that. It's $450. If we do purchase that table, all of you are invited. I believe we can do that. We cannot discuss city business, and we should probably have somebody there to monitor us to make sure that we're not, so we don't get accused of violating the Brown Act. But you can attend that. What I'm looking for is just through a majority of heads shaking yes that you do want to purchase that table.
A warning too, all Rotarians will be wearing cowboy hats.
Nice.
I think absolutely,
Yeah.
and a cowboy hat if you like.
I hear you.
I just,
Get up challenge?
you know,
I don't even know what that is. I'm so clueless.
I still have to look up, what that is. I know it's dancing, but I don't know what. I mean, so, but I'm looking for direction or I'm not direction, I just need consensus of enough shaking heads to tell me yes to go ahead.
Who's maybe first on the dais? Who is not already
I think we have a table, but I think it'd be good idea for the city to have a table.
Yeah. I think we have 2 Rotarians on the dais right now, and I'm not sure if Councilman Smith is or not, but.
You don't have to be Rotarian to go.
But I'd like to see everybody there if possible. I think it gives you an opportunity to interact with a different segment of our community that don't necessarily come down here. I mean, that's just.
Tickets are going very fast.
I believe it's February 8th. Is that correct, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
February 8th, 6 PM, Gold Country Casino.
I think I see enough yes heads, so. What I'll do is I will get that done, and then I will contact everyone to let them know if we have the tickets here, where we have the tickets, so I can get those to you, and hopefully you'll all be able to make it and have a good time. That is all I have.
Okay, Sam? Nothing. Leo?
Yeah, just briefly. First off, with regard to the cleanup, also just so you know, Wade has already started the alley cleanup about a week and a half ago, so he's been working on getting that done in the meantime while we're coming up with the policy. And with regard to the neighborhood meeting on the South Oroville vision, I thought that was really well attended, surprisingly well, actually. I thought that was a great first meeting. And really Wes and Connor were the ones who put it all together, so I was pretty happy with that. They did a great job, and I was happy to facilitate, so I thought that came off well. We continue to be busy. We continue to bring more and more stuff in. I wanted to talk about Mavericks going in down here, where they're going to be going on Feather River Boulevard. Yeah, there. And on Oro Dam, but also the business that was there actually didn't close. They actually moved to another location and are improving a location along Feather River Boulevard. So that's pretty encouraging. That
What was the name of the company?
Mavericks. It's like
It's
like a Love's Junior type of thing.
Yeah, gotcha.
No showers, no overnights. It's kind of a it's a truck stop is what it is, but but it has scales and that sort of thing, so. But also the business, like I said, didn't go out of business, they moved, which is encouraging as well. And they actually, talking to Cam, he's got interest over on Vista Illinois and a few of the homes already as well, so that's about it.
I have a question. Sorry, with the Mavericks, and maybe we can have the side conversation, but do you know if they've made if there's going to be any adjustments in regarding the on and off? Because the spot there isn't very conducive, as we know, for trucks to be coming on and getting over to that location. Have they come up with a solution for that, or has the planning department thought of something that's going to help?
Yeah, it'll be basically coming off the freeway and making a left onto Feather River. You won't be able to cut straight across traffic to get in there. You have to go left in and then they'll right out. So you'll go in off of Feather River on the backside. You have to go through the intersection, and then when they come out, they'll only be able to go right out to there. They won't out onto Oro Dam there. Yeah. I don't know
Is
if
the
that's-
hotel still in the play?
Yeah, over behind where Starbucks and all that is.
Have they announced the particular one yet, or?
Yeah, it's a it's a Hampton Inn Suites. Yeah, yeah.
Is that it?
So that's about it.
It's a nice hotel.
Joe?
So on the dispatch remodel, just, the builder said 3.5 to 4 weeks. Leo and I have discussed that, and we don't want anybody to get their hopes up that it's gonna be done that fast. We'll see how fast they can work, but 3.5 weeks it's a very large project, what's gonna be going on there. The only other thing is, the Public Safety Department will have 5 new employees starting the 27th of February, between police and fire.
Nice. Thank you.
You are working in a building that was built in 1982 under very weird circumstances, so I give it more time.
Yeah, I think we just, right here, said 4 months, not 4 weeks. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We're just excited for it to get started.
Yeah.
All right, well, with that, we're going to adjourn this meeting, and Councilmember Goodson has a question after the meeting.